Okay, well, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us for benchmarks and key practices for mobile recruiting. Um, I'm your host today, along with Stephen Schwander. My name is Ian Alexander. I head up marketing for Telemetry, and joining me is Stephen Schwander, who heads up our client solutions group. And I should say good afternoon to you, Stephen, because I think you're out on the East Coast today, correct?
Yes, I am. Thank you. How are you?
Good, good. And I'm on the West Coast, so it's still morning for me. And welcome to everybody wherever you happen to be. Excited to talk to you today. I think we have a good program, and we're really going to dig into some metrics around mobile recruiting and talk about some key practices around mobile recruiting. Before we get started, a couple of housekeeping items. Um, Please ask questions throughout the process. We'll probably answer them at the end. But feel free to use the GoToWebinar console to chat in your questions at any time. And if they're appropriate to what we're talking about, we'll grab them and bring them into the discussion as we're doing it. And a little bit about and then the other big question that we get is, will there be a recording or slides available? And yes, probably about 24 hours after the webinar, we will send you out a link to the recording of the webinar as well as slides too. So, and then I should tell you a little bit about telemetry and why we are talking about benchmarks and mobile recruiting. At Telemetry, we provide a recruitment marketing platform that works with your applicant tracking system to do things like help you provide better candidate experiences through targeted mobile career sites and mobile apply processes, as well as helping you to centralize all your sources of candidates into a centralized talent pool and provide you the tools to reach out and engage those through mobile optimized email campaigns and one-to-one email campaigns and other things, as well as help you distribute your jobs automatically throughout the web. So that's kind of why we're talking about these kinds of things. And I should say that underlying our entire platform is a sort of source to hire metrics and analytics engine that monitors everything you do. So we have access to analytics, and that's why we're here today, kind of sharing some of those metrics across our client base. So as we look at the agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about what is mobile recruiting, right? Because we want to level set it, as far as what we're talking about, so we're all talking about the same thing. Um, Talk about sort of the broad impact of mobile on the hiring process, and that's where we'll be looking at sort of just industry-wide kinds of numbers and data, and then we'll get specific and talk about some of the key mobile metrics that we see across our client base of recruiters that are hiring using our tools, and we can see the metrics on in aggregate. And then finally, some key practices for mobile talent acquisition. What kind of baseline functionality should you be offering? And so, um, as we jump into that, let's talk a little bit about the definition. And the way we define uh, mobile recruiting is any facet of recruiting that includes attraction, engagement, or conversion of a candidate via mobile technology. All right, so what are we talking about? We're talking about things like career sites, certainly job applications, where you're providing that candidate experience and converting candidates from visitors to actual applicants. Social networks, where candidates are researching your company and oftentimes engaging with your jobs. Job ads, whether that be on job boards or social networks. Um, any email outreach that you do, and we'll talk about kind of how email affects all this a little bit later. But once you sort of pull email into the mobile realm, that opens up things like events when you're sending out invitations and maybe signing people up for recruiting events via email. You certainly have autoresponders coming out of your ATS where you're sort of setting expectations and acknowledging candidates' applications. Interview scheduling, any type of automated interview scheduling that you're doing that's accessed through a mobile device through email, um, as well as offer letters. Really, when you boil it down, what we're saying is basically all recruiting has some facet of mobile in it and an increasingly larger facet of mobile in it. And that's why, from a practical standpoint, we need to stop saying mobile recruiting because mobile recruiting is just recruiting and people are accessing us as recruiters via mobile devices, via email, and via online interactions. And as a marketer, I'm as guilty as anybody of honing in on mobile recruiting because it's a relatively hot topic. But I think as practitioners, we need to realize that this is an integrated, it's woven into the fabric of everything we do now. And based on some of the things I'm going to share with you, we'll make the case that it's going to just increase and become more of a factor in everything we're doing.
Ian, I'm just going to jump in and pat you on the back on this because I think this is a really good concept to point out that we really are talking about recruiting, and we're talking about how then does recruiting work in an integrated fashion on a mobile device. So that prior slide we had all of those things that need to be mobile. Very few of our clients aren't doing most of that in a somewhat mobile way, but are they taking a really integrated approach and really understanding how all of this stuff happens, from end to end with a mobile device? So I think that's a great point, and I think it will be our focus.
Yep, exactly. And thank you for patting me on the back, Stephen. That makes me feel good. And I think I'm going to have a great webinar now because I'm pumped up. That positive
Yeah,
reinforcement.
it's still morning for you, so I want to give you a shot at a good day.
Good. So let's talk about the broad impact of mobile. Some of the broad things you'll see out there as you're researching mobile and how it affects your business. And we'll start with sort of how it affects your online portion of your recruiting. And this is a study by LinkedIn, and they asked 800 people, um, you know, how what their interactions are with mobile in terms of recruiting. And 72% of job seekers that they surveyed used mobile devices to browse company sites. So that's going up and researching a company. Is this a company I want to work for, or I'm interested in working for? 64% of those surveyed browsed jobs. They researched companies on social networks. So they're actively looking for jobs, whether that's on a corporate career site, looking through job requisitions, or researching companies on social networks, or looking at jobs on social networks. 45% of those people said that they applied for jobs using a mobile device, and 43% said they uploaded resumes. And I throw this out. First of all, I would tell you that these numbers are when not actual experience. They are survey numbers. So you just sort of ask people about their behavior. It's not analytics of actual behavior for any group or subgroup. LinkedIn's job numbers in terms of people searching for jobs on mobile devices are much lower. Their experience is much lower. But I throw this up here to kind of um, validate. I think they are somewhat valid from the standpoint of if you're hiring a mobile applications engineer, I guarantee you that these numbers are exactly probably what the behavior is of a mobile applications engineer. We can look at numbers in terms of broad aggregate, but when you're a recruiter and you need to hire someone in a specific niche, which typically is where you have the most difficulty in finding the right talent, these numbers can be absolutely correct. I don't know that they are, but I would intuitively say that you're probably looking at behavior that looks something like this. And then I would also throw them up there just to kind of show you that if they're not there today, the numbers will be there within the next few years for sure.
And Ian, this is just a total commentary on my part, and we'll tell you kind of where I sit in my thinking too. Is that not only is this, these are questions that were asked of LinkedIn users. So what we know about LinkedIn users, and we're probably all on the webinar LinkedIn users, and some may be multitasking on LinkedIn as we speak, and probably doing it on their phone. So as LinkedIn users, we're oriented toward mobile, number one, right? And number two, we're oriented towards social, LinkedIn being social. So you have those two things sort of combining in this slide. If I put my corporate, director of recruiting hat on and look at this, I say, you know what? I have to be careful because this is the behavior that people want, and if they're able to get all of that in a LinkedIn environment, that's where they're going to want to do it, and which is from a brand perspective going to help LinkedIn a whole lot more than it helps my brand. And so, the impact of that is really crucial for me to make sure that I can push people off of these other people's sites into my experience as quickly as possible, which is going to make mobile really important for my brand. But
Yeah.
that's just me thinking out loud.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's definitely a lot of talk about how much control you want to have LinkedIn having, with your, ownership of candidates. So it's definitely a good point. So if we go a little bit deeper and talk, or a little bit more segmented, let's talk about the broad impact on mobile on job advertising. So 20% of all people who are viewing jobs on job boards, that's across all job boards, are viewing them on a mobile device. And I throw in here 30% on LinkedIn because that's what LinkedIn's published experience is um, with mobile job hunters, is that 30% on LinkedIn, and for the reasons that Stephen just described, obviously. So that's 1 in 5 people who are viewing your ads that you've placed, that you've spent money on. They're on mobile devices. Now, to follow that down a little bit more, 8% of the people who click apply through to your jobs and apply, finish an application, only 8% finish an application from those job boards. Okay, so that's everybody. That's whether you're on mobile or you're on desktop. Roughly 8%, according to Appcast. So you've got 8% of your job ad viewers actually clicking through and completing an application. When it comes to mobile, it's 1.5% who are on a job board, click your ad, uh, go to your application, and complete that application. So that's a huge drop off. It's a 5 times drop off in terms of being able to realize the value of your investment in that job ad. And if you look at it a different way, right now, mobile job seekers are costing you 5 times more per applicant than than desktop job seekers, regular job seekers, as if there is such a thing. So, so still, 1 in 5 people who are viewing your job ads are mobile, and next year it'll be, 1 in 4, and the year after that, it's going to be 1 in 3. It's going to continue to rise. And to the extent that you are not making that conversion process completely smooth from a mobile standpoint, you're going to continue to pay more for those mobile candidates that you do get. And you're going to miss a lot of mobile candidates because you're not supporting that. So the value of your investment there in your job ads is not being optimized for mobile, and you're spending more, basically. You're getting less for more. So broad impact of mobile on email. Across every industry, not just recruiting, 53% of all emails that are opened on mobile devices. So that's for me as a marketer when I'm marketing to recruiters and HR practitioners. 53% of those emails I can expect to be opened on a mobile device. For recruiters, that's going to be things like we talked about, autoresponders. It might be invitations to an assessment. It might be sourcing outreach, might be sourcing campaigns, might be individual sourcing outreach from one-to-one, from a recruiter to a potential candidate. Any nurturing campaigns that you might send out to your candidate talent pools, newsletters and educating them about your company, keeping them warm, interview scheduling, even offer letters. Assume that most people that are getting an email from you are reading it on a mobile device, because that's the fact. And again, we will see these numbers even increase over time. So let's talk about specific benchmarks. This is where, telemetry as a vendor, as I said, we support many of these candidate interaction, whether it be via email or via websites and application processes. We support these and we analyze them for all our clients in aggregate. So looking at candidate experience over the last 3 months, we took a look at approximately 50 million visits that our clients experienced through their online career sites and got the following numbers. So as far as career site traffic from mobile or tablet, 27% of all the visits for all our clients uh, are coming from mobile or tablet. All right, so it's kind of in line between some of the numbers we've seen. We talked about job boards and we talked about LinkedIn, so it's right in line there in between those two sort of benchmarks. Of all the people that started applications for our clients, uh, 17% of them were mobile. So let me say that again because I stuttered on it. Of all the people that apply for jobs, 17% were mobile. That means they clicked the apply button. Of all the people that completed applications, 9% of them were on mobile devices. And of all the people that were hired, 9% came from mobile devices, from applications that were started on mobile devices. So again, because we integrate with the applicant tracking system and we're able to read data back and forth between telemetry and that we're able to track all the way through hire. So we know that about 1 in every 11 hires that were made by our clients were hiring from mobile applies, right? So what that tells me is if you're hiring the best available person for every position and you're not catering to mobile, you can assume that 9% of the people that you hire are not the best available person for that particular position, right? And if you look at your total workforce and you imagine what that workforce might look like, the productivity might look like if you said, well, for almost 10% of our workforce, we're hiring maybe not the best person we could have gotten, but maybe the second best or third best, because we didn't get that mobile candidate in there because we made it difficult for them to fill out an application and engage with us. It's pretty significant stuff. Certainly not necessarily scientific, but intuitively understood from the data there. All right, so let's talk about conversion rates. From that same data, 63% of all candidates that started an application on a desktop completed it on a desktop. So 63% conversion rate for people applying on their computer, which is pretty darn good. From a mobile standpoint, the completion rate of 14% of all people who started an application with telemetry clients on a mobile device completed that application. Okay, so I'll just call back to that number we talked about before from Appcast, where an average of 1.5% of people clicking the apply button through from job boards to apply for your job completed it on mobile. This is 14%. It's almost a 10 times increase. So if you have 100,000 applicants each month, and 1.5% of them are mobile, what's that? 1,500 applicants. Now, if you can boost that to 14%, that's 15,000 applicants. So those kinds of increases at the conversion level, when you're taking someone from interest to conversion to somebody you know to an applicant that you can now evaluate and work with, create staggeringly large increases in the volume of candidates that you receive. And I should say the difference there between the Appcast numbers, where that's just sort of everybody. That's everybody from who clicked through from a job board to every employer, whether they be mobile optimized or not mobile optimized in their application processes. And the telemetry numbers are our clients by and large are mobile optimized on their apply processes.
Yeah, the interesting thing for me as I look at this as well as as I now I put my my internal telemetry hat on and take a look at our clients is I also see the opportunity here for increase, right? So not only is having a mobile optimized process or a mobile capable. Let me say mobile capable, right? Because I'm not digging into each one of these clients and from my opinion saying are they optimized. but we can already see that it's 10 times better than if you don't have that in place. And then I look at the opportunity for even increasing capability even more so by optimizing that process, right? So not only making the technology available, but then making sure that the process actually fits the technology, and we're simplifying it further and further to get the better candidates in. So a lot of opportunity in that slide as well.
Yeah, no, I that's a great point, Stephen. And I guess you would define mobile enabled as I have a 8 to 10 page application that is not mobile enabled, and now I've mobile enabled that, and now I have an 8 to 10 page application that reads well on a mobile device. That would be mobile enabled.
Yep.
Um, you know, when I've gone through and optimized the experience for mobile by adding things like multi-step apply, or I've included things like social profile extraction to populate the application, simplified it, mobile optimized it. Then yeah, there's a big difference between that, and your point is well taken. I think even with our client base, there is tremendous headroom on the mobile side by utilizing the tools in the best way possible. And I think, and as a vendor, we are constantly innovating and pushing new features out. And, hopefully each quarter as we push out a new release, we are improving the types of options that people have to optimize for mobile. All right, so telemetry email benchmark. So as we look at our email side of things, as recruiters are reaching out through the telemetry system, whether that's through mass email campaigns for sourcing, whether that's through one-on-one sourcing activity for specialized positions, we're looking at a 3-month period with approximately 500,000 emails sent. Right. So what we see, sort of key statistics for mobile email usage for telemetry, 50% of all emails that were viewed were on a mobile. All right. So we talked about 53% before. This is 54%, right in the ballpark. Recruiting is no different than the rest of all other industries in aggregate. Candidates are reading your emails mostly, or I should say more than half are reading them on a mobile device. And then of all the people that took action on the emails that our clients sent out, 30% took action on a mobile, right? So whatever you're asking that candidate to do, almost a third of them are trying to do it on a mobile phone. So that's important to recognize every time you put together an email, every time you're communicating with a candidate, what are you asking them to do? Because a third of the people that are going to do anything are going to try and do it on mobile. Okay.
Yeah, so if we kind of make a shift here and talk a little bit about some of the trends that we're seeing for 2016, then we can kind of overlay how does and to try to be honest with the beginning of this webinar, rather than saying how does mobile recruiting overlay, say how does optimizing our recruitment across the mobile channels and overlay with some of these recruiting trends. So the first one is a little bit obvious because we hear it in the news on a continual basis. In 2016, we expect the job market to grow by about 2 million jobs, and that's a little bit less than 2015, but it's still a very steady pace. Kiplinger is expecting that unemployment is going to drop to under 4.6% on end for 2016, which most analysts would say is almost zero unemployment, or in other words, almost full employment. So what that just means is that it's more and more difficult to fill open jobs. Now, anecdotally, and I wish I could have found some statistics on this, I still think there's a lot of activity there. So as we move forward, let's keep that in mind, that even though it's harder to find people, I still think there's a lot of activity. There's a real, because we went through such a lull for such a long period of time, people are itching for something new. So while we have full unemployment and it's more difficult to hire, we also have a lot of activity in the marketplace.
A lot of people whose ears are open to other opportunities because they've been pent up in jobs maybe that they didn't feel like they could move from in previous years, right?
Yep, absolutely right. So just to push that a little bit more, you've got about, in 2009 we had about seven unemployed candidates per job. right? And in 2015, we had about 1.5 unemployed candidates per job, and we expect that to even decrease in 2016, right? Now, we're all recruiters on the phone, so we always say, well, usually our top talent is already currently employed. Our top talent is probably looking for a stretch role, not to do exactly what they're doing in their current role in the wonderful job opening that we have, right? They're probably looking for a role that maybe offers a little bit more life purpose, maybe even a little bit more life balance. And so that because of those things, there's definitely a lot of traffic and a lot of movement. So, the ability to get data into the system and have applicants submit their interest, right? And I'm using that term instead of application here for a very specific purpose, but the ability to have them submit their interest in that role as quickly and easily as possible is what's going to help us increase the ability to find that top talent amongst all that other noise that's out there right now. So, it's getting harder, but we expected it to get harder. This trend number 2 says that hiring times are becoming compressed. So there was a report out from Roth Staffing that said, they've got, they're looking at about 4 to 5 days from interview to offer. And that active candidates are receiving multiple offers. Now, again, anecdotally, I can tell you that I have a 25-year-old son who is a recruiter, and probably 2 or 3 times a week calls me to complain that candidates he's placing are either getting other offers or getting counter offers from their current employers. So we see this not only as a report but also anecdotally, it seems to be true. Now, the interesting thing about this trend, that hiring times are being compressed, there was a report by Glassdoor last year that said that our hiring times have grown from 3.3 days to 3.7 days on average since 2009. So on the one hand, we're seeing that the market wants to move a lot faster, right? So you complete your interview process and you get that offer relatively quickly. Our internal processes are slowing things down, and so you have a real issue there. It's a disconnect between what the market wants to do and what our internal processes are doing. And so we're going to have to, we have to look at our internal processes and our technology and say, are we delaying something that needs to be faster, or are we slowing it down so that we can make a better hire? Those are some of the challenges I think in that trend.
And I should say those particular slides came out of our webinar that we did a little earlier in the year called 2016 Trends in Hiring. And if you're interested in seeing that full webinar, you can get that on the Talemetry site under the resources section. You can get a replay of that webinar.
And that's totally free, just cost of shipping. All right, and so what is the impact of, let's sort of optimizing or not optimizing our mobile recruiting on some of these trends? So just a couple of kind of thought-provoking questions here. Can you afford to underserve anywhere from 27% to 72%? How do you like how those numbers just kind of revert there, right? Of your career site traffic, right? So, we spend a lot of time and effort getting people to our career site, but then, can we convert them in an easy fashion, right? Do we want to spend 5 times more to convert mobile job ad responders, right? Because, that's what we're seeing in the data. That because it's so difficult to convert them, we now have to go out and get 5 times more of them in order to convert the number that we need. We want to ask 54% of everybody that we send an email to sort of wait till they get home on their desktop computer before they can take an action, right? And frankly, do we want to ignore a source of hire of at least 9% of all hires? And I would argue that if we optimize that, we'd see that number grow incredibly, not to mention how would we dig down into that number to say, is this a higher quality candidate? So, these are some very thought-provoking questions that we want to ask in terms of, if we don't optimize, and again, there's very few people that don't have, mobile consumption capability, but if we don't want to optimize our recruiting capability. So what are some key practices as we think about either putting into place a mobile recruitment capability or optimizing that capability? So I think we're probably all relatively aware of responsive design. There's a good example of it here on the screen in terms of, what does content look like when it gets generated on a phone. We do this all the time when we're purchasing things, right? Or we're reading news, etc. It's the ability to be able to consume that, but also take action, right? Not only consume the data, but take action on a mobile device. So, and this isn't, from an optimized perspective, you don't want your users to come and say, okay, let me click here to go to the mobile, and let me click here to go to the website. You want your website to recognize the size and the type of device that's being used, and then change the way that the data is being consumed. So that's responsive design. And as we work with clients, we have sort of a basic responsive design, which just takes what you have and makes it legible and consumable and actionable on a mobile device. But then we have an advanced responsive design that says, you know what, let's ditch a lot of the text when it comes down to a mobile and just focus on what matters. Let's put it in a different format, and let's really do some advanced things. Let's make sure that video is up front and center, because it's really easy to consume video on a mobile device, and let's make sure that job search is really simple on a mobile device, right? And if you kind of wondering what that looks like, go out to some of the LinkedIn and Indeed, etc., and download their apps and see how simple it is to search for jobs on those devices. You want it to be that easy on your own career site as well.
Yeah, and then as it says here, browsing is not a mobile experience. So the concept of browsing for a job does not work on mobile. I don't want to go and look for operational jobs, and then click through to operational jobs in the Northeast, and then click through to manager level operational jobs in the Northeast. It just doesn't work on mobile. That's why your search needs to be Google-esque in its ability to get people where they want to go.
So we've picked up in this next slide just kind of an example of one of our clients, just to get a sense of what that responsive design looks like. So UPMC is a large medical center in western Pennsylvania, and you can see from their full desktop site what it looks like there. And then you can see on a mobile device on the right-hand side what the search jobs capability looks like. And then when they jump right down into a job itself, and we kind of cut off the apply button there, but you can see on the job itself that it's very simple to be able to read that. Some of our other clients actually have the apply button on the upper right-hand corner as well, something you want to kind of keep in mind, so that you're not necessarily having to scroll down to take that action. You want to make it really simple. But this is a good way just to kind of show how the same the same website, right? So it's the same technology, but because it's responsive, is going to be consumed and actioned in a different way once it comes down to the smaller devices.
And you can see not a lot of text, video front and center on the desktop side of things. So a lot of good things going on there. Search front and center, a lot of good things going on there from a career site strategy standpoint.
Yeah, so earlier, Ian well pointed us out that we're no longer talking about mobile recruiting; we're talking about recruiting, right? And as I was listening to him speak earlier, I was thinking, wow, that kind of has something to do with social as well. Well, here it is. Social is the key to mobile. So as we talk about the mobile apply process, so now we're talking about actioning what we're consuming. So I can easily read a job description online, but how do I apply? So the first key for this is that social is the key to mobile. Why do I say that? Because most of us are not running around with a full resume sitting on our phone or our tablet to be able to upload, and a lot of times the operating systems of those don't allow for that anyway. So you need to have a mobile-friendly way for people to get to the resume that they want to use to apply. So in this case, you want to be able to use LinkedIn. A lot of our clients are using LinkedIn. A lot of them are using Facebook, although that creates a problem because there's not that much data on a Facebook profile, and a Google Plus. Indeed, right? So we've got a good partnership with Indeed to get that data pushed in there really easily. But apart from social, then we've also got cloud resume extraction. So can they, from their mobile device, reach out and pull their resume from Dropbox or Google, for instance, right? Google Drive. So this is very important. You're not going to have you're not going to have a mobile apply process at all unless they can pull their resume in from a social or cloud-based solution. And then you want to be real about engagement. In other words, you know, are you looking in this process to tick box absolutely every piece of data that is required for you to hire somebody, or are you looking to engage this candidate and make sure that they are generally qualified and absolutely interested in that role? And if this was a live seminar instead of a webinar, you would see by the color of my hair that I go back to paper applications, right? And when I first started in the recruiting realm, we never asked people to apply to fill out an application until they sat with us in an interview, and then we gave them that 6-page application to fill out for 20 minutes before they came to into the back room for an interview. The internet changed all that, and we thought, well, shoot, now we can capture all this data up front. It can push straight through to our HCM systems, and we now have data quality, et cetera, et cetera. But we've overdone it, right? So we get way more data than we need to actually pull people into the beginning process of recruiting, and that turns a lot of people off. So if we want to be real about engagement, we want to be real about helping people to take action and convert people, then we want a very simple apply process. Maybe there's a 2-step apply process. Let me give you my resume and maybe my EEO data, and then you can determine whether or not you want to take me to the next step. When you take me to the next step, maybe you require a little bit more data, but I've got skin in the game at this point, right? We now are much more interested in talking. One of my pet peeves is if I go into a job application and I've got to give them all of this data and I don't even know if they're remotely interested in me. It really turns me off, right? Um, some people are answering this by giving an apply later option, and you'll see a lot of that. So I want to apply when I'm back on my desktop. You give them that option. It's not a bad option. Then they'll come back and do it when they're much more comfortable. I prefer a 2-step process, frankly. I think you get the data that you need to push it forward. But then also maybe you offer a talent network option that says, you know what, I'm really interested in this company. This job's not quite right for me, but is there a really quick way I can give you my resume and figure out which ones are right later on? So you want a mobile optimized talent network option as well, and not one of these silly little give me your email address and tell me what jobs you're interested in. You want a full-blown talent network that allows them to use that social profile or cloud resume to create a full a full profile.
Yeah, I think the key there is options, right? You don't know where people are going to be coming from. Give them as many options to make it to engage with you as possible, as easily as possible, is the best of all worlds. You can see on that graphic there, it's everything from, as we said, Dropbox, Google Drive. We also offer OneDrive from Microsoft, which is not particular on this particular client, but LinkedIn, Facebook, Indeed, Google Plus, and even a button to apply later. Just give us your email, we'll send you a link, and you can do it in your desktop if that's where you'd rather do it. So options increase conversion rate. So email. So as you talk about key practices in email, I think Stephen talked about responsive design in your career site. Make sure you're using responsive templates and responsive design in your emails, and that you're using an email provider that is mobile friendly. So that when people get those within their mobile device, the text isn't running off to one side. It's not super tiny. You got to keep that in mind, especially when more people are reading your emails via mobile than via other devices. Make them visually appealing. Make them pop. Design them for the medium that is going to be most likely reading them. So that means same as career sites, short text. People don't consider, think of yourself in your typical mobile situation. You might be outside looking at something, it's difficult to read. You might be at your desk working at your job, and you don't have a lot of time to read, so you quickly skim things. All right, so keep those things in mind as you're creating your email outreach to candidates. Then a big one, make sure that all reasonable actions that you're requesting them to do can actually be done on the mobile device, right? So again, 30% of people who are going to do anything with your email are going to be on a mobile device. So make sure that they can complete it, whatever it is you're asking them to do. Um, and then a great tip is always read your own email and respond to it on a mobile device before you send it out to anybody, so you can really understand. Am I asking somebody to fill out an assessment and I get to the assessment and I can't even log in and I can't do it on mobile? Then you might have an issue there that maybe in the short term is difficult to rectify, but that is depressing your response for those things. Same thing for applying for jobs or browsing for jobs. What's the experience on the other end when they click that via a mobile device? And that kind of leads into mobile conversion, kind of crosses over with mobile conversion. Make sure when they click, you certainly have mobilely responsive landing pages. So as Stephen said, um, you're able to act on those particular jobs, whether it's browsing for particular jobs or whether it's consuming a piece of content. Make sure it's optimized for that. It's relevant to the email. I mean, ideally, when you send a sourcing email out, when you're inviting multiple candidates to apply for a position, you want to drop them right where they can apply for a position. Or if you want them to browse a certain section of jobs, you want to drop them right on that section of jobs. You don't want to drop them on the front page of your career site where they need to kind of dig a couple of levels to find out where those jobs are. And ideally, you want to create a specific landing page for that email campaign. So if you're sending an email out that is for nursing jobs, and so we have an example here. We got a great email going out. It's got a big click button on there that's easy to click. And then when they get to the landing page on the right, it's very similar. It's the same messaging. It's continuing the conversation that we started in the email. And we've got the jobs that we want them to look at segmented out there in that View Jobs button. So those are all things that are going to increase your response rate and your conversion rate. And as I said before, conversion rate is key because small increments in conversion rate can create huge increases in the number of candidates that you have to consider. And then this last one, you don't need to read all this. I kind of just took all our key practices and threw them on one page to kind of drive home the point that whatever you do from a mobile strategy standpoint, it's going to work for everything that you do in recruiting. Kind of it's a flip side of what we talked about at the beginning. Like, let's not call it mobile recruiting because it's really not mobile recruiting. It's just recruiting in general. So, if you put short text and big calls to action in your emails, well, that's going to make your mobile emails more effective. And it's also going to make your desktop emails, people who read it on the desktop, it's going to be more effective for them as well. If you're using responsive design in your career sites, it's not going to make it any more difficult for desktop users. It's actually going to help them out because it's going to force you to kind of really streamline and make your career site as focused and as search friendly as possible. So if you're putting less text, more video, and you're increasing the effectiveness of your search and the prominence of your search, that's going to help your desktop candidates as well. Same with the social and mobile resume extraction technologies that you might use. Apply with LinkedIn, two-step apply, simplifying your applications, talent network options. These all run through, make everything you do more effective. So I think we have a tendency to kind of look at, as vendors, we kind of have a tendency to say, you need to look at mobile strategies for recruiting. And I think as practitioners, we kind of say, well, we've got a lot of projects that we need to do, and mobile recruiting is one of those projects, right? So when are we going to get to that mobile recruiting project? When is that going to become important enough for us? And I think we just need to kind of wash that all away and say, this is recruiting. And if 27 to 30 to, even higher percentage of our candidates are coming to us on mobile, then that's a large incremental increase in all our recruiting efforts that we can do by catering to them, and it's going to flow to all boats. Not only will our desktop results go up, but our mobile results will go up as well, and we'll see that across the board. So it's more of a recruiting effectiveness issue than it is sort of a mobile centric kind of um, problem to be solved.
So it's funny. I've seen two things happen out in the marketplaces because people really get the idea that mobile is important, right? And like you said, they're doing that mobile project, and so they'll go to quote unquote mobile vendors, and essentially what they're doing is creating an additional solution that operates sort of side by side with their ATS, but not necessarily fully integrated with it. But they've created a relatively slick mobile process until it comes to the point of application, or they're creating an application that's sitting outside of the ATS and having to figure out how to get data kind of pushing back and forth there. So we've said it a couple of times that a two-step apply process is probably going to be the future. And what does that mean? So as a user, the second thing I'm seeing. So the first thing I'm seeing is that a lot of people will go with a solution that sits alongside of the ATS. The second thing I'm seeing is that companies will say, well, my ATS provides a mobile template, so I'm just going to go ahead and use the mobile template, which you should, but you still then have the application process that you have to contend with, right? So it's not always possible to simplify the end game in terms of the application process, but by doing two things. Number one, putting in a mobile application process that's integrated with the ATS, it could help you if you're using the right vendor and solution. It could help you get over some of the key areas where there is a lot of drop off. So the first thing is registration. How many of you, you try to apply for a job and the first thing you have to do is either log into that company's ATS or create a registration for that company's ATS. And that is never going to be simple on a mobile device. It just adds that extra layer of complexity. So if you can put in a solution that doesn't require that, you're going to get a lot better turnover, both on a desktop, frankly, as well as on a mobile. And then if you go into a two-step process that says, you know what, once I've written the data into the ATS so that your mobile application process is integrated to the ATS, once I've written it in there, maybe it gets written into the ATS as a draft or as an incomplete app or some way that says, you know what, we're going to trigger an email out to complete that at a later stage, but at least now I know that this person is relatively qualified, and I know that they're absolutely interested, and I have enough to push them forward into that next step. So again, just to kind of reiterate, that engagement stuff is really, really important.
Yep. So just to recap here, mobile recommendations, sort of baseline stuff. Start first and foremost, you need to be able to measure mobile. And if you don't know how your metrics stack up against the benchmarks that we talked about, you need to find that out, whether that's through Google Analytics or within other systems that you have that might be tracking your career site traffic. Understand what the size of the issue is for you. And so not only can you sort of set a priority for it, but also a benchmark where you can improve and where you started and where you end up. And then again, mobile optimize those career sites, responsive design, mobile friendly search is huge. Less text, more visuals. It's not rocket science. It's just a matter of having the right technology and setting about a project to get it implemented. And then mobile optimize and simplify the applications is where need to kind of rethink how we do things. Shorter forms, two-step apply. Consider, as Steven said, apply alternatives. And then, as Steven said, stop asking people to register. Just stop. Because if you were buying shoes and you wanted to add them to your cart and it said, okay, well, we'll add that to your cart, but why don't you register first? Maybe those shoes were too expensive anyway. I don't want to go through the hassle of it. I don't even know what's on the other end of that registration process. So I'll just I'll do it later. I won't buy them at all. And then when you go to get around to doing it later, you don't even know where you were when you first started. So it's a conversion killer. It's a gate that is stopping really viable candidates from getting into your system, where you can engage them and consider them and maybe hire them. Responsive email templates, again, really pay attention to your email because it is being read. Again, I'll say for the 12th time, it's being read by people on mobile. So make sure that they can they can action on it and use less text, larger calls to action, and downstream maximize everything downstream so it can be actioned on by mobile. And again, it gets back to look, if it's more difficult to get candidates, and it's definitely more difficult to get candidates in specialized positions, and many of your candidates are going to be already employed, and hiring times are compressed. Mobile is where you get speed time to hire. Mobile is where you can engage people and get them into your process quickly if you make it easy for them on mobile. If you don't, that slows everything down because then all those people that you spent money on to get into your system so you can engage them, all those people that you spoke to on the phone or got interested in your jobs, when you're asking them to act, you're slowing down their ability to then re-engage and follow the process with you. So you're not killing it, but you're slowing it down for sure. In some worst case, you're killing it. Best case, you're slowing it down. So that's mobile recruiting. We do have one question, and that is how do people typically apply via phone? Do they upload a resume? So I guess you're asking sort of in our experience, what do we see in terms of how people are applying? I don't know about you, Steve. I don't have good data on that exactly in terms of who's applying versus how they're applying. From a mobile standpoint, the only piece of data I would tell you is that in looking at one of our larger clients that offers mobile apply, and they have cloud apply options, but they don't have social apply options. That we see a huge difference between iPhone applicants and Android applicants. Okay, and there's a couple reasons for that. Obviously, Android systems, Android mobile phones, will have a file system. So if you wanted to store a resume on your phone, you can do that, and makes it easy to upload your resume and apply via resume. Also, if you have Android, Google Drive is pretty somewhat tightly integrated into the operating system, and it's easy to kind of store a resume on your Google Drive, and it's easy to get to from your phone. It's easier to kind of to do that. And if you so we see very low application rates from iPhone users, like 5 times lower than from Android users. So it's good to keep in mind that, however, as I talked about before, it's options, right? So you need to have the options to appeal to every kind of mobile, and certainly the two biggest, which Apple and Android, in our experience from a mobile standpoint, they're about 50-50. We see about 50% iPhone applicants versus or iPhone people who hit the career site versus Android people who hit the career site. But when it comes to conversion rate, with that particular client, we definitely see much higher conversion rates with Android. And so you do need to offer those options like LinkedIn Apply, where an iPhone user can just easily apply, because if not, they don't have a file system. They can't keep a resume on their phone. And as far as reaching out to Google Drive, it's just not as tightly integrated with the Apple iOS. So you really kind of got to go out of your way to set that up on your iPhone and have a resume ready and do all that kind of stuff. So that's my long, short answer on that one. I think, let's see, we have one other question here. What mobile app is compatible or interfaces with Taleo Enterprise? So I'm not quite sure what you mean by mobile app. So what we're talking about in this webinar so far is all happens in the browser. So it's not an app-specific apply process. So when we talk about the applications that people are filling out via mobile, it's the same application as you would have within Taleo, but it's just rendered optimized for a mobile phone. So as the mobile user hits that same app, it recompiles that application and shows it in the browser of the mobile phone in a way that's much easier. So, and I don't know if I'm reading that question quite right. So I'm sorry if I'm not giving you the right answer there. But the idea there is that um, uh, either whether through Taleo's application, mobile capability in their application, or whether through a third party, it's about having one application and just having it render differently within those two. And Telemetry as a gold partner with Oracle, we integrate with both with Taleo and PeopleSoft and Oracle to support that application process as a third party. Good. What about iSIMs? How about iSIMs? Uh, Not quite sure what the question is there in terms of whether their applications are mobile or whether there are third parties that integrate with iSIMs. But feel free to reach out to me, or I can follow up with you and individually because I can see who you are and get more detail on that question. So if that is it, I want to thank everybody for coming. If you want to learn more about telemetry mobile recruiting solutions with the bar and the circle around it, or our recruitment marketing platform, certainly go to telemetry.com, or you can reach out to me personally if you have any specific questions or want to be pointed in the direction of someone who can help you with some information. I can definitely do that. And really had a lot of fun. Thank you, Stephen. And
Thank you.
thanks everybody for joining us, and make it a great day.